The rise and fall of first-person shooters. Gaming has a core design. Games are meant to distract and rip you out of reality and put you in the shoes of someone or something else. There are of course other games that do this. Think for instance RPG games. They're literally role-playing games. They're meant to make you another person, but I believe there are no better games that do this than first-person shooters. For some context, first-person shooters have been around for a while. The first one being released in 1973 by NASA engineers titled Maze War. But this genre was made over 50 years ago, but was actually defined by a game called Wolfenstein 3D, released in 1992. Wolfenstein 3D is a game that uses the level system and is about as basic as you can get. You load the level, you shoot bad guys, and you go to the next level. But the game was such a big success that more first-person shooters spawned out of it. The Doom series, not just the 2016 one, Duke Nukem, Quake, and Half-Life are some of the biggest names that came from this genre at that time. That is until something came out. The Xbox came out on November 13th of 2001, and with it, the father to modern gaming, Halo. Halo was one of the first-person shooters to break the mold. You not just go load a level and see a 2D screen that had still images of soldiers or aliens. The enemies now reacted and moved on a 3D plane. The first Halo game is a pillar in time that set sail to the biggest and now most important addition to any game: multiplayer. You could come over and play with a buddy on the same screen in the same room. This was groundbreaking in more than one way. Yeah, you could play with a friend and kick alien behind with a fellow space soldier, but what would happen if you did not need to be in the same room? Halo 2 answered this question with what seems like the most basic mode of any modern game: online multiplayer. How does this affect the genre of first-person shooters, though? This created the groundwork to FPS, first-person shooter games. Competition. People play FPS games as a way of competing with one another and proving who is better. This seemingly small action of making a game able to be played from separate rooms/TVs created esports, electronic sports. That's a topic for another time. It's just too big now. It's too big of a topic to talk about in one video. But back to the topic. The one game that would be known for online multiplayer experience even more than Halo would be a game called Call of Duty. It's kind of important to note that the first ever Call of Duty came out in 2003. The spike of attention and fame came from the widely loved Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2009. Not the 2019 remake 10 years later, but the one that defined modern multiplayer. This game has inspired many after it, and a whole game line to follow in its footsteps. A notable one would be a game called X-Defiant. It followed the same formula for COD 4, with a set loadout, alongside a wide variety of guns and maps to play on. Ultimately, the game lost a lot of retention with the player base as the world caught wind of the new Call of Duty game. It's also important to note that any genre of this magnitude is going to be hard to make your way to the top of. Many studios have tried, but they usually end up very successful or very unsuccessful. Multiple games have done just this. Games like Halo Infinite, Titanfall 2, and more recent one, Concord. At the end of the day, Call of Duty has a set precedent that all games must follow. There is one anomaly in the FPS field, though. One game that has risen and fallen throughout its life cycle. Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege has been in the ringer and holds the record for most flops and successes in FPS history. This can be attributed to many things, but the most likely cause is the fact that it is not an arcade FPS game. It is a competitive shooter. This is a subgenre in the genre of FPS. R6, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege, is a case of the rise and fall of FPS video games. It never is cut and dry like it may seem. For example, Call of Duty is either a hit or a miss to the public. It either succeeds or it fails. This is because there's always going to be a new one next year, and the year after that, and the year after that. That being Call of Duty Vanguard. Call of Duty Vanguard came out with one of the worst launches in multiplayer FPS Call of Duty history. People bought the game, they started playing the game, they realized how bad the game was, and they dropped it. And people, including me, said, guess they'll do better next year. R6 is different though. It has a new season or release every 3 to 4 months. Between those months is when games like R6 can shine. They can drop cool little updates with a Halloween or Christmas event, and new skins and game modes. This is not only limited to R6 though. Every other big FPS and game in general does this stuff, but what happens if the updates in between fail or do not meet the player expectations? This stuff happens a lot. Games in the FPS genre suffer from this a ton. As of writing this paper, the new Call of Duty has an issue with a new mechanic they brought in, and it sucks. They pretty much allow you to just look through walls, and in a game centered around shooting your opponents, if you have the advantage of seeing through the wall and your opponent does not, people are going to hate that mechanic. They're going to hate you for implementing it, and they're going to stop playing your game. This is only a page 1 of issues that have plagued the book of FPS games, yet people still play the games. This is because people who play the games have a favorite game, or the group they play with has a favorite game to play. A lot of people fall into this category of they like to play Call of Duty or they like to play Halo, so they never move on. Most people also flock to what is the most popular on the market or media. That is why games like Call of Duty and R6 are always played and people come back to them. They are the cornerstones of FPS gaming in the modern era. These games came out years ago, or the franchise came out years ago, and this is the only game people play nowadays. That is why games like XDefiant are left in a sink or swim situation. They need to compete with this development cycle like Activision, the owners of Call of Duty, and I guess now Halo Studios, the owner of Halo. This is very bad for XDefiant, so they're forced to rush content, and they're forced to put out stuff that doesn't work or have very glitchy mechanics, and not every company can do this. This is the sad situation with XDefiant. Yes, people still play the game, but the game is not as nearly as active as it used to be. I remember going in the middle, I think, of summer and being hyped for XDefiant, being like, this is the new big FPS game. This is what everyone's going to be playing now. But it ended up becoming a huge flop because they decided to go against the wave and they could not swim against it. They sunk. And it really ruined their game. So their parent company, Ubisoft, you may know them from games like Assassin's Creed, which is not an FPS game, or another game like Rainbow Six Siege. Yeah, they tried to compete with Call of Duty in this category, but they decided to just bloat it with microtransactions. They wanted you to spend money, spend all the money you had, and their goal is probably, at the end of the day, to make as much money and then shut the game down, like many other companies have done before. And that'll be the final nail in the coffin for XDefiant. It's going to become a microtransactional mess, and it's going to sink. Modern games have one thing in common, though. That is microtransactions. There is no game right now that does not have microtransactions. Every game mentioned in this essay/video has a microtransaction. Call of Duty Black Ops 6 came out October 25th. October 27th was the first day an advertisement came out for the game. Halo Infinite came out December 28th, 2021, and Rainbow Six Siege came out December 1st, I believe 2014. All the same story. Except Halo did something that would change a lot of games' perspectives on microtransactions. They backed away. They made every item in the game obtainable from in-game effort and hard work. They have this program, quotation marks program, in the game called the Spartan, I guess, program. Sorry for saying it so much. And throughout the game, you could earn multiple free currencies and exchange those for certain in-game items. They also, at the beginning of their game, made battle passes not time limited. You could go back and do these old battle passes and still get the rewards even if they came out 3 years ago. I mean, I still haven't completed the first battle pass from Season 1, mainly because during that time Rainbow Six Siege was popular, but at the same time, you could just leave the game. They were not holding you hostage to play their game because you had the fear of missing out, FOMO for short. But that's just how games are. Businesses make games now because they've seen how profitable gaming can actually be. Games are being pushed to do this because of harsh business and CEOs trying to make a penny off of gamers all over the world. Going off of the FPS genre a little bit here, it's only short, I promise. I'm sorry for the words I'm about to say to hit your sensitive ears. League of Legends. That game, just its name spits horrors into your mind. It's so toxic. It's such a bad community behind it, but this is a free-to-play game, meaning you do not have to pay a single dollar to play their game. So how do they make their money? They make it off of microtransactions like everyone else, but how do they push these? Well, limited time. There are a few cosmetics in the game that are down there from day one. They're in the game. They look horrible. They're bad. And yes, I'm out of myself. I have played it. Ugh. But how they do their events and handle their seasonal content is you have this certain amount of time to get it, and if you don't, go kick rocks. You didn't buy it. You didn't give us money. We don't care. And that is a very good example of modern gaming in most businesses' mindsets. Games like Call of Duty Black Ops 6, they can seem like a good game on the outside, giving an homage to their fans like Halo Reach did because it's the last Halo game. But Call of Duty Black Ops 6 is made by Activision. And if there's one thing Activision is known for, it's trying to get every single penny out of their player base. And that's the harsh reality of modern gaming. They don't make games for you anymore. They don't make games for gamers. They make it for money. In fact, when was the last time in recent history that a game is made that made it mainstream and is still played that was made for the people? It depends on who you ask. If you asked me, it was Halo Reach. It was an FPS game with a budget and one goal: make a fan letter to the fans. Show them that the company loves the player base and this is their goodbye. Games do not do that anymore. Yeah, there are Easter eggs. Example, Black Ops 6. If you hit the maximum level, you got a skin for a random character from Black Ops 2. But that is not a fan letter. That is just an Easter egg saying, thanks for playing our game, spend more money. And there are also Easter eggs. And I'm not saying that there aren't caring people in the industry. There are plenty of developers that care about their player base, but they're not the ones in charge of the games anymore. That has grossly been taken out back, and unfortunately old Yellard, that whole mindset is just gone for modern gaming. And if the game doesn't make enough money, it gets axed, so it never has the chance to grow and become this big tree that you get to see the fruits of your labor from. And that's the sad reality of modern FPS games and gaming as a whole. The industry lost most of the people who care about the game and the fans, and they only care about the end profit and monetization. Companies do not make games for people like me and you anymore. They make games that will bring them the most money, and they make games that will appease the player base for now. And that's the sad truth. Had to rip the Band-Aid off eventually. Games will never be like they used to be anymore. They are never really the same. Games will come out, they will be axed because they did not meet the quota, and then the whole cycle will repeat. Another game that's not an FPS game, unfortunately, a game like from Ubisoft, the same people who made Rainbow Six Siege and the poor X Defiant, they made a game called Skull and Bones, and it was supposed to be a direct competitor to a game called Sea of Thieves, and you could kind of put this in the first-person shooter category. It's not necessarily a first-person shooter, more it's a first-person adventure game with old pirate stuff, like the Kraken and I guess a Megalodon, if that was back then. But it was one of the most pre-ordered games ever, and it was immediately cut because buggy, whatever. Every game comes out buggy, but they cut it so preemptively. If they just waited and really gave it funding, we would have had a actual Sea of Thieves competitor, and competition is never bad. But when one person rules the genre, it's hard for games like that to come out. And that leads us back into the loop. They put out a game they care about. They load it with microtransactions and kill it. That's modern gaming in a whole little nutshell. And this leads me to my last point. How to fix it. How do you fix modern gaming? Modern gaming's broken. Modern gaming is not what it used to be. You're going to hear that out of a lot of older gamers. People, I say older, but reality, they're 25, 26, 27, not much older than me. And it's not really broken. Gaming is just evolving. It evolves the same way we have over the thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years we've been on this planet. It's very economy driven now. You know, when this Call of Duty game's coming out, they're going to make a buttload of money because people want that old nostalgic feeling. And gaming heavily relies on that nowadays, if that isn't obvious. If you play video games, you've seen the entirety of Black Ops 6, you get free rewards throughout it that shoot back to the older Call of Duty games. I mean, if you played Black Ops 2 like I did, and you played through the campaign, I think it's Prestige 5 in the new Call of Duty Black Ops 6 game, you get to play as the main villain, Menendez, but that's not really what players are looking for. They're looking for the fountain of youth. They're looking for an escape back to childhood, but that's never going to happen, and FPS games suffer from it the most. Because, no, your games like Halo 3 and Call of Duty Black Ops 2 are not better than the current Halo and Call of Duty games. To you they are, but to another kid, this is their childhood. And that leads into what FPS games mean to people, more as like a outlet. People didn't play FPS games because I wanted to hurt something, I wanted to shoot something. They didn't play it like that. They played it because they saw a game, they played a game, and it helped them escape. For me, that was Halo Reach. It was the first ever video game I picked up and played, and I've been hooked ever since. Call it a fishing hook of addiction, if you want to, but I genuinely enjoy the escape from reality when I get off work, or I get back from college, and I'm able to escape. But going back to the fixing point. Fixing is a very bad word to use nowadays because it's not true. It never broke. Gaming is still the same. Gaming is still just as strong and just as powerful as it used to be. But if you're really looking for a true answer to the fix this scenario, get rid of the microtransactions. No one wants to buy a $60 game that they've already paid full price for, and then they see a skin that was added because, oh look, I'm a green dragon now. Shots at Call of Duty. and they're like, I have to spend $30 on it to look cool again. It doesn't matter. They're going to keep putting microtransactions in the game because it makes them money and people cannot resist it. Because at the end of the day, video games, I guess, are just fashion shows. I mean, look at a game like, not an FPS game, but Fortnite. The whole game is what you look like now. The game isn't about the gameplay. Whatever, you run around and shoot people. Welcome to the club. But Fortnite has become a fashion show. And if they're not careful, Call of Duty and games like Halo, who have already kind of been leaning into that category of appeal to looking cool because you're not good at the game. Slight jab. I'm not good at those games either. I'm fine. But it's just, there's not a fix. People will say, like, why can't we go back to the way things used to be? Because that's not how time works. You're never going to go back to being that 8-year-old kid sitting in front of your screen shooting up at the sky because you couldn't figure out how to use a joystick on an Xbox 360 controller. You're going to sit there and shoot at the sky and be completely enamored. Kids are doing that as I speak. I'm recording this as of 4:30 p.m. and there is most certainly a kid out there experiencing that joy of FPS games that they were able to bring to me as a kid. And they're going to look back at these games and see absolutely nothing wrong. And to us, seeing a game that comes out and you're like, why do I have to spend $100 to even look how I want to look? Back in my day, when you played Halo Reach, you just unlocked things with credits from the in-game store. You could earn through playing games and leveling up. Well, people don't want to sit there and grind those games forever anymore. I mean, one of those games that came out was called The First Ascendant. There's another FPS game out there. It's called Destiny 2. I love the game. It's one of my favorites, but it came out as a direct competitor to Destiny 2. And you could literally just skip everything if you dished out like $20. And that doesn't sit right with me because I grew up playing Halo Reach. I played a game where you had to play so much to get what you wanted to look like as your Spartan, as you call them, your space soldier. So you could go kick alien behinds and look awesome in a new shoulder. It's just like, gaming's not going to be what we thought it was going to be. And it will never, because games will continue to destroy our expectations. Games like Elden Ring and Black Myth Wukong come out, and people praise it like it's Jesus walking back on the earth again. And they can do that, but FPS games have struggled for a while. Because when there is such a big genre for love and happiness for a genre, there's going to be a lot of hate in that genre as well. People who sit here and will look at the TV and once again go, back in my day, bullets didn't travel instantly, that's unrealistic. Or stuff like, back in my day, we didn't run anymore. All we did was walk in a line and get shot at. Well, gaming's evolving. And I think for a closing statement, I'm just going to thank you guys for listening. For my last little segment, it is not on the script, if you could not tell. It's all over the place, and it's very sloppy, but it's me. It's what I like to do. I like to rant, I like to talk about video games. And I'm not ashamed of it. Will I sit in class when this is projected to multiple people that I do not know and be embarrassed and turn as red as a tomato? Yeah. Am I going to be embarrassed about the sound quality? Abso-friggin-lutely. It peaks. It's recorded on my phone and put into a very, very boring backdrop of a mission from Halo Reach. but I'm going to be happy with it. This is what I want to do. So as a reminder, please like and subscribe. Please turn on notifications, because I'm not going to be posting every week. I just can't do that. I got too much important stuff to do outside of this. And it would be a great pleasure to keep talking to y'all, keep ranting, and hear what you guys have to say in the comment section about what I talk about. So, thank you guys for listening. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk, or my soapbox. I should start stepping down right about now. But enjoy your day, make someone smile, and have fun.